Hey there, this is Alex Kluge. I'm here from Toronto Home Experts, and I'm here to dive into the December 2021 Toronto real estate market update. Okay, so before I get into the numbers, I want to share with you just some context. So, for sales volume, I know I'm going to talk about December's sales volume, but overall sales volume was the highest on record. I know I talked about a little bit about that in the last month's video, but what's mind-boggling is that actually we were the highest sales volume for the year by over 28% relative to the last highest sales volume, which was last year. So we were 28% more sales in Toronto real estate than we were the year before, which is absolutely incredible. And so when we talk about low inventory, I know that's a theme that I've talked about on this video before. The low inventory isn't necessarily um, that there's a lack of product on the market. There's a lack of product to meet that buyer demand. Like, buyer demand right now is extremely high, probably the highest I've ever seen, to be frank. So when we're talking about sales volume and like inventory, like, yes, we've had a record year, but really, even though we've had a record year, there's not enough demand, not enough supply to meet that demand from buyers. So really, the theme of 2021 was high buyer demand, and I see that continuing into 2022. So let's dive into the numbers now. So last December to this December, we were down roughly 15% for sales volume. And that's not surprising, just given what happened last year, and that, with the pandemic and really starting in earnest in, call it, March 2020, and April was, quite low volume. So a lot of that volume was pushed to the latter half of the year. So we're going to see that little bit of a discrepancy. But, when we dive into the numbers a little bit more closely, looking at active listings, and this is the number that I think tells the real picture of what's happening in the market. So look at this. Active listings were down 59% in the month of December. So 3232 was the number of active listings that we had on the market at that time. So this is the lowest inventory or active listings that we've ever had on the market for the month of December. Just for some context, like an average number that we would see for active listings in December, taking away this year and last year, it's like 12,000. So this is unbelievable. So what is it saying is that, like, basically everything, there's such huge buyer demand, as I said earlier, that inventory is basically being absorbed by those buyers. So right now, that is telling me that we're going to see this buyer demand continue, certainly in the first quarter of 2022, and likely beyond that. But really, this is probably one of the most important statistics that, when I looked at for this December, that really stood out at me. Okay, so new listings. So new listings, we were down roughly 12%. Again, not entirely surprising, given the active listings that we were just looking at, comparing that to the month of December of last year, and also knowing a little bit about what happened last December versus this December. So, it's a little bit of a skew when you see that it's down 12%, but really, like, it's showing us that a lot of the new listings are being absorbed by the marketplace, which we'll get into in looking at months of inventory. So average price, this is going to be a little bit shocking to a lot of you when you're looking at this, and this is an unbelievable jump, but like 24.2% is the average price increase in the Greater Toronto Area relative to last year. And, we had a pretty big jump last year, if you remember watching last year's video at this time. So this is actually a pretty big number. And frankly, when we're looking at, real estate in Toronto, the Greater Toronto Area, moving forward, we cannot expect this type of annual increase. This is like one of these increases that's spurred on by ultra low interest rates, the pandemic really shifting buyer demand, and prompting a lot of new sales as a result. So, it's really kind of a mix of that. And really, what we haven't seen was prompted the market to accelerate in price in years past, is growth, immigration, like a lot of people moving to Canada. We didn't really see that in 2021. I think that's going to change in 2022. So that's going to really fill that gap in terms of demand. So, this is a pretty big number, and this is not something that we should expect moving forward. But diving into those numbers a little bit more closely, looking at the home price index for a lot of the different regions, we're looking at, for me, what's popping out is Durham, like 42%, like HPI increase from last year is truly mind-boggling. Toronto was a little bit more muted, and I say muted in parentheses, like 23%. And the reason that is, I think, is the condo market was a little bit more muted in this year versus what I would call a normal year. And I think that's really going to change in 2022. I think 2022 is going to be the year of the condo, and certainly in the 416, and that's going to really lead the market, I think. But really, these numbers are absolutely staggering. But looking at the numbers by asset class a little bit more closely, it's interesting. Like you look at, across the board, detach are really leading in terms of like the price increases year over year. Condos in certain regions like York Region, Durham, certainly that's also happening as well. But it's pretty across the board. Like, yes, there's slight differences in certain asset classes, but the fact that we saw such huge appreciation and it's pretty consistent across the board is not entirely surprising, if you ask me. Okay, so days on market. So when we're talking about these market conditions that we're looking at right now, it's not entirely surprising to see that, it's down significantly. Like, so when we have active listings at an all-time low, we're going to see months of inventory at an all-time low. So this is what we're seeing now, like down 14%, that's down 41%. Like that's truly really, really low when we're comparing against other Decembers, which typically in a normal, quote unquote, normal real estate market, December tends to be a quieter time of year. So that's when we usually see days on market increase. But we're not seeing that right now because of the lack of active listings and buyer demand. So months of inventory, like if, no surprise that we're down to 0.9%. And actually, this is the lowest months of inventory we've had ever on record for the month of December. Again, active listings plays a huge part in that. That's why the months of inventory is so low. So months of inventory is an indicator that I think really tells you where we are in terms of buyer and seller demand. And obviously right now, sellers right now are, it's a seller's market, and we're seeing like that huge demand by buyers. So really at this point, I would expect the months of inventory to probably maybe increase a little bit in January, but normalize once we get to the busier months of February, March, April of this year. So anyways, hit us up on all our socials. We love hearing your feedback, and any questions. If you want more information on how the market actually affects you and your specific situation, please reach out to us. Be happy to book a one-on-one consultation. And thanks again for following us, and we will see you next month. Thanks again.